from New Delhi. You're watching DD India Live, India's voice to the world. I'm Ramesh Ramachandran. Coming up in the next 30 minutes. UK opinion polls show that the centre-left Labour Party is set for a big win in Thursday's vote that would end 14 years of Conservative government. France's left-wing and centrist parties withdraw hundreds of candidates from Sunday's runoff vote in a bid to prevent a far-right party from winning an absolute majority. Foreign ministers of India and Russia meet on the margins of SCO summit in Kazakhstan, hold talks on bilateral and contemporary issues. And a judicial probe has been ordered into a fatal stampede in India that claimed at least 121 lives, most of them women and children. It's the final day of campaigning as the UK prepares to hold a parliamentary election on Thursday. Opinion polls have predicted that the ruling Conservatives will be unseated by the opposition Labour Party after 14 years in power. Prime Minister Rishi Sunak has sought to persuade voters that his 20 months in charge have set the economy on an upward path after the COVID-19 pandemic. He has also argued that Labour will increase taxes. For his part, Labour leader Keir Starmer has promised change, tapping into public discontent over the UK's falling living standards. Former UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson made a surprise appearance in the election campaign, issuing a last-ditch bid to rally support for the Conservatives and their leader Rishi Sunak, the man who helped turf him out of office. Johnson won a big majority in the last election in 2019 before being forced to resign in 2022 by a Conservative mutiny, which Sunak helped to start. Reaching out to voters, Johnson focused on what he said were the dangers of the opposition Labour Party winning power.
5 years ago, you helped to send Jeremy Corbyn and his then disciple, Keir Starmer, into orbit where they belonged, and we got Brexit done. We restored democracy. We restored democracy to our country, and it was because we got a proper Brexit, and you will all remember how hard that fight was, that we came out of the EU single market, we controlled our own regulation. And my friends, whatever people may say, that national independence was vital when it came to approving COVID vaccines faster than any EU country, and therefore getting the fastest vaccine rollout of any major economy and the fastest economic rebound in the G7.
And joining me from London is my colleague Stuart Smith. Stuart, Rishi Sunak insists that the outcome of this election is not a foregone conclusion. Is there merit in his argument?
Well, what he's doing when he says that is citing a poll that was conducted which provided an analysis that 130,000 votes in favour of the Conservatives instead of Labour would deprive any Labour government of a majority, creating a hung parliament. Now, 130,000 votes is a lot, and they would all have to come from exactly the right place for that to happen. But it's a message he is trying to spread to supporters of the Conservatives and also campaigners to try to inject some optimism in this last day of campaigning, with the polls looking incredibly bad for the Conservative Party, something that a cabinet minister admitted earlier in the day, saying that it was highly unlikely the polls were wrong and that Labour was heading for the largest majority of any political party in the UK ever. So it does look dire for the Conservatives, but Rishi Sunak is trying to use that as a warning. He's trying to tell potential voters who may otherwise stay away that they should cast a vote for the Conservatives, at least to make sure the Labour Party do not have an uncontested majority in Parliament, and that the Conservatives can put forward a degree of opposition.
Now, that said, Stuart, opinion polls gave Labour a double-digit lead since before the election campaign began. Now, what should the world expect from a Keir Starmer government in terms of foreign, security and economic policies?
Well, largely the Labour leader Keir Starmer, who's likely to be Prime Minister, has endorsed the Conservative Party's foreign policy on the big issues for the UK. So if we start with Russia, Ukraine and NATO, he'll be flying, if he does become Prime Minister, to Washington very shortly after being elected. And when he does so, he's expected to continue support for Ukraine, continue caution around dealing with Russia, as Boris Johnson and Rishi Sunak have done before him. When it comes to the European Union, though, there's a little bit of difference expected. The Labour Party is not going to try to get Britain to rejoin the European Union by any means, but it is expected Labour will reach out on a few precise areas of policy, for example, to ease border checks on animal products, to recognise qualifications that are given in the European Union and seek mutual recognition for UK qualifications, and also perhaps try and change the situation for musicians trying to tour Europe to make it easier for them to come to the UK. Small tweaks that provide a little insight that Labour wants to become closer with the European Union, but no radical shift expected. Then with Beijing, China, Labour says it plans a reset with Beijing. We don't know exactly what that means, but it says it will audit the current relationship and potentially seek changes. And with India, that free trade deal that eluded Rishi Sunak and Boris Johnson in their premierships, Labour says it still wants to keep trying for a free trade deal with India.
Stuart, thank you for breaking it down for our viewers. Appreciate it. Stuart Smith there in London. Moving on, in France, more than 200 candidates from the left-wing and President Emmanuel Macron's centrist camp have withdrawn from Sunday's runoff election in a bid to avoid splitting the anti-right-wing vote. According to French media, there will now be around 108 three-way races instead of more than 300. The mass exit came after Marine Le Pen's far-right National Rally Party secured a historic win in the first round of poll. The second round will be held on 7th July. A broad left-wing alliance came second and Macron's centrists were placed third. Now, Marine Le Pen's National Rally Party slammed Macron's call for a Republican front to defeat the far-right, saying that the move was elitist and against the French people's interest.
I don't believe in this Republican front at all. You know, I think one cannot stand up against a people who have started to hope again. National Rally leader Bardella is the personality who crystallizes this hope, who crystallizes the end of budgetary, migratory and security chaos. The French are counting on us, and I think they are much more free than the elites might think.
Now, across the Atlantic, US President Joe Biden is facing candid questions from within. After a disastrous debate night with Donald Trump, doubts are now being raised in the party about his ability to lead. Some elected Democrats loyal to Biden have raised fresh questions about his re-election bid, with one calling for him to step aside. Now, there could be as many as 25 Democratic lawmakers in the lower house of US legislature preparing to call for Biden to step aside. With pressure rising, some donors have called for him to step aside too. And other Democrats are worrying openly that he is not equipped to beat Trump in November. But some experts say that whether Biden continues his re-election bid or not is largely his own decision. Now, Biden on Tuesday blamed the international trips for his poor performance in the presidential debate. Speaking to donors at a fundraiser in a Virginia suburb of Washington, D.C., Biden admitted that he did not perform well in the debate. He apologized for his performance and said that it was not an excuse but an explanation. In a major reprieve for Donald Trump, a New York judge has postponed his sentencing for covering up hush money payments until the 18th of September. The sentencing had previously been set for 11th of July, just days before the Republican National Convention begins in the city of Milwaukee on the 15th. The new timeline means that Trump will likely have been nominated by his party to challenge Biden by the time he is sentenced. The conviction in New York in the month of May made Trump the first former U.S. president ever to be convicted of a crime. He was found guilty on 34 counts of falsifying business records to cover up hush money payments over his alleged affair with an adult film star in the run-up to the 2016 election. India's External Affairs Minister Subramaniam Jaishankar is representing the country at a Shanghai Cooperation Organization summit in Kazakhstan. Minister Jaishankar met his Russian counterpart Sergei Lavrov on Wednesday. They held wide-ranging talks on bilateral partnership and contemporary issues. Minister Jaishankar noted the progress in many areas since their last meeting in December 2023. He voiced his concern over Indian nationals in the war zone and pressed for their safe and expeditious return. Kazakhstan is hosting the summit in its capacity as the current chair of the grouping. The summit is expected to focus on regional security and ways to boost connectivity and trade. India chaired the SCO last year. It hosted an SCO summit in a virtual format in July last year. Russia issued a permanent entry ban on 99 Canadian citizens as a countermeasure. The Russian Foreign Ministry alleged that the Canadian citizens were involved in the elaboration and implementation of Ottawa's anti-Russia policies. It said that the ban will not affect ordinary Canadians. A military parade is being held in Belarus's capital Minsk to commemorate the 80th anniversary of its liberation from Nazi invaders. Troops from many former Soviet countries were part of the Independence Day military parade. Nuclear-capable missile launch systems and unmanned aerial vehicles were included in the parade. The event saw the participation of Russia's Defense Minister Andrei Belousov, besides delegations from Azerbaijan, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, Uzbekistan, and China. In Nepal, the two largest parties in the federal parliament, Nepali Congress and the CPN-UML, have agreed to share power, aiming to form a new government under the leadership of UML Chair KP Sharma Oli. Prime Minister Pushpakamal Dahal Prachand on Tuesday had called on President Ramchandra Paudel and decided not to resign from his post. The pact, finalized between NC President Sher Bahadur Deoba and UML Chair KP Oli, outlines the ministerial division, provincial leadership roles and a rotation for the prime ministerial position. Under the agreement, Oli will lead the government for the first half of the remaining term of the current parliament. China seized a Taiwanese fishing boat on Tuesday. China claims that the boat was illegally fishing in the area, but Taipei said that the fishing boat was near Taiwan-administered Kinmen Island. The boat was operating during China's no-fishing season. It's common for fishing boats to get detained and later released after paying some penalties. Still to come on DD India Live. India's parliament adjourns after both houses adopt the motion of thanks on the president's address. A two-day global summit on artificial intelligence begins in India's capital, New Delhi. And India's stock market hits record highs. BSE Sensex crosses the 80,000 mark for the first time. You're watching DD India Live. I'm Ramesh Ramachandran. India's parliament was adjourned sine die after its upper house on Wednesday adopted the motion of thanks on the president's address. The lower house of parliament had adjourned sine die a day earlier. It marks the conclusion of a productive legislative period that saw significant developments. The session, which commenced on 24th June, comprised 7 sittings over a span of 34 hours, achieving a commendable productivity rate of 103%. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi replied to the motion of thanks on the President's address in the upper house on Wednesday. Speaking in the Rajya Sabha, the Prime Minister expressed gratitude to the people for supporting the work done by the BJP-led NDA government in the last 10 years.
10 वर्षों के अखंड एकनिष्ठ अविरत सेवा भाव से किए हुए कार्य को देश की जनता ने जी भरकर के समर्थन दिया है। देश की जनता ने आशीर्वाद दिए हैं। आदरणीय सभापति जी, इस चुनाव में देशवासियों की विवेक बुद्धि पर गर्व होता है, क्योंकि उन्होंने प्रोपेगेंडा को परास्त कर दिया है।
Prime Minister Modi vowed that with the public's mandate in favor of the NDA, India will ascend to the status of a global economic powerhouse, joining the ranks of the world's top 3 economies.
कोरोना के कठिन कालखंड के बावजूद, संघर्ष की वैश्विक परिस्थितियों के बावजूद, तनाव के वातावरण के बावजूद भी हम हमारे देश की अर्थव्यवस्था को 10 नंबर से आज विश्व में 5 नंबर पर पहुंचाने में सफल हुए। इस बार देश की जनता ने हमें 5 नंबर से 3 नंबर की इकोनॉमी पर पहुंचाने के लिए जनादेश दिया है, और मुझे पक्का विश्वास है कि देश की जनता ने हमें जो जनादेश दिया है, हम भारत की अर्थव्यवस्था को विश्व के टॉप 3 में पहुंचा के रहेंगे।
India is hosting a 2-day Global India AI Summit in New Delhi. The summit aims to reaffirm India's unwavering commitment to responsible development, deployment and adoption of artificial intelligence. While inaugurating the summit on Wednesday, India's Minister for Electronics and Information Technology, Ashwini Vaishnav, said that the threats of disinformation, misinformation and fake news have all multiplied manifold because of AI.
In the recent general elections, we have seen how big a threat disinformation, misinformation and fake news can be. And that threat gets multiplied manifold by the power of AI. And this is not something which only we are experiencing. The entire world has experienced the same, and globally every society, every government is feeling exactly the same threat from the emergence of new risks based on AI. And the societies are responding in very methodical, very thought-through ways. As we look at the potential of AI, we also need to collectively figure out a way what limits we need to pose on the technology.
A deadly stampede happened at a religious event in Hathras, a city in the northern Indian state of Uttar Pradesh. The incident claimed at least 121 lives, mostly women and children. Uttar Pradesh Chief Minister Yogi Adityanath visited Hathras to assess the situation. He held a meeting with the authorities concerned and announced a judicial probe into the incident. He visited a government hospital to inquire about the well-being of the 28 people injured in the incident. The Chief Minister announced a financial assistance of $2,300 each to the families of the deceased. Meanwhile, a public interest litigation was filed in the Allahabad High Court seeking a Central Bureau of Investigation inquiry. Russia's President Vladimir Putin has sent a condolence message to India's President Draupadi Murmu and Prime Minister Narendra Modi over the deaths in the Stampede. The message read, and I quote, "Kindly accept the most sincere condolences over the tragic incident in Uttar Pradesh. Please convey words of sympathy and support to the near and dear ones of the deceased, as well as wishes for a speedy recovery of all injured." Unquote. And now take a look at what else is making news in India. India's Navy Chief Admiral Dinesh Kumar Tripathi held talks with security advisor to Bangladesh's Prime Minister Major General Tariq Ahmad Siddique at Dhaka on Wednesday. The discussions focused on enhancing long-standing relations between the two nations through defense cooperation. Two workers were trapped after a landslide at a construction site in Mangaluru in the southern Indian state of Karnataka. The landslide occurred while construction work was underway. Rescue efforts are on to evacuate the stranded workers. Continuous and heavy rainfall in Ayodhya in the northern Indian state of Uttar Pradesh has caused a noticeable rise in the water level of the Saryu River. Authorities are monitoring the situation as the swollen river poses a risk of flooding. India's NPCI International Payments Limited has facilitated the acceptance of QR code-based unified payments interface payments across point-of-sale terminals in the UAE. This initiative aims to provide seamless transaction experiences for Indian tourists across merchant networks in the UAE. With over 200,000 POS terminals spread across 60,000 plus merchants in various sectors such as retail, hospitality, transport and supermarkets, UPI acceptance rollout will encompass a diverse range of establishments including popular tourist and leisure attractions.
Network International is privileged to be able to enable the acceptance of UPI wallets. 400 million active consumers of the UPI wallet can now use their electronic payment solutions in the UAE seamlessly at the entire real estate of merchants serviced by Network, which is roughly 25,000 merchants in the UAE.
India's benchmark stock market indices, the Nifty and Sensex, reached new all-time highs on Wednesday, with Sensex crossing the 80,000 mark for the very first time. It was driven by strong performance in banking and fast-moving consumer goods sectors. Sensex rose 0.72% to 80,013, while Nifty opened 0.7% higher at 24,291. The Sensex had previously crossed 70,000 on the 11th of December last year. The stage is all set for a grand reception of T20 World Champion India. The victorious team would call on India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi in New Delhi. A roadshow is also planned in Mumbai. Vishal Baristo spoke to the Vice President of the Board of Control for Cricket in India.
The wait is finally over and now the men in blue are on their way. I have with me the Vice President of BCCI, Mr. Rajiv Shukla. Let's talk to him and find out, sir, the moment finally is going to arrive. So what is going to be the schedule and about their meeting with the Prime Minister?
Well, I mean, as you are aware that for 4 days team was stuck because of hurricane. They were not able to move from there. They were confined to their hotels. Even there was complete lockdown in Barbados. The airport was closed. So today they have just flown from there. we at BCCI had chartered Air India aircraft, which is directly bringing them to Delhi tomorrow morning at 6 o'clock. At 11 o'clock, they'll be going to the Prime Minister house for a reception, and they will be meeting the Honorable Prime Minister. From there, they will straight go to the airport. From there, a charter plane has been organized, which will fetch them to Mumbai. In Mumbai, there will be a road show from Nariman Point to Wankhede Stadium. In Wankhede Stadium, a reception has been kept, in which this 125 crores sum will be distributed to the players, victorious players, staff and coaches. And there will be a reception also of the players, victorious team. BCI President and Secretary both are accompanying the team from Barbados, and that's how it will unfold.
Sir, talking about the Mumbai Road Show, so how is it going to be a grand show? Because after a long wait, they are coming with a cup.
Earlier we were thinking of taking a long route, but now we have changed it because there is a paucity of time. We thought that they would take off at 6 in the morning, but now they have just taken off. So there is no time. This show will also be around 5 or 6 o'clock in the evening. And we don't want players to be held up for so long because they have to go back to their respective homes.
Absolutely, and why not? The families would be waiting, and the whole country is waiting to receive them. With cameraman Vinod Oja in Delhi, this is Vishal Baristo for DD India.
And with that, it's a wrap on this edition of DD India Live. You can get all the latest news and updates on the DD India mobile app. It's available on both Android and iOS platforms. You can scan the QR code on the screen now to download it. And let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. You can connect with us on Facebook, X and Instagram. You can also check out our website ddindia.co.in. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Ramesh Ramachandran. From all of us here in New Delhi, thanks for watching DD India Live.
This week on Defense Dynamics, our special coverage is to decode the Pakistan Army's latest announcement of Operation Azm-e-Istikam. We will get you an in-depth analysis of this new Pak Army's operation along with its regional fallout. Watch Defense Dynamics on DD India every Wednesday, 8:30 p.m. IST.